Hi, Dr. Casella here again, and this time I'm going to show you how to write a script in Python that uses a formula to perform a calculation. So actually what we're going to do is, if you look on the very next slide, you can see we have this quadratic equation, f of x equal to 34 times x squared plus 68 times x minus 510. And we can solve for x in this quadratic equation because it is quadratic. It's in the form of a, where a is just some number, times x squared. In this case, a would be 34, plus b times x. In this case, b would be 68, plus c. In this case, c would be negative 510, equal to 0. So we can find the roots of this equation by basically solving solving the relationship where 34x squared plus 68x minus 510 is equal to 0. When we find the values of x such that 34x squared plus 68x minus 510 is equal to 0, those values of x are the roots of the equation. And in a math class, you can learn how to solve for that x. And it turns out that the solution for setting this function equal to 0 would be for the values of x equal to this formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, and then the whole thing over 2a. And here they're using PEMDAS, the order of operations, in high gear in order to solve this problem. So actually, if I do look at the PEMDAS, remember parentheses are done first. So if I look at this formula, it's like, oh, well, here's a parenthesis. It starts here and ends here. All right, so I would do what's inside the parentheses first. It's like, okay, well, within the parentheses, there's another set of parentheses, which starts here and ends there. So actually, I'd have to do this set of parentheses first. So here I've got b squared, b asterisk asterisk 2 is b squared, and then minus 4ac. So PEMDAS, after there's no more parentheses in here, but the next is exponentiation. So the next thing I would do is I'd calculate b squared, all right? And I wouldn't calculate the subtraction yet because I have to do multiplication before addition and subtraction. So I'd say 4, so I'd calculate b squared, then I'd calculate 4 times a times c, and then I would say b squared minus 4, the calculation for 4ac, and that result would be what's inside this parentheses. And then I'd have to take the square root of it. So whatever that result is, I take the square root of it, and then I take the opposite of b, and I can add one of the solutions of x will be when I add the square root of that number to it, and then that would be having done the whole operation within these parentheses, and then I divide it by, well, first thing before I do the division, I have to do this parentheses, which is multiplying 2 times a, and then once I've done that, I'll have a number down here before I calculated the number up here, so then it's just basically whatever this number worked out to be divided by this number. And then that's my solution for x. And there's two solutions for x. The one solution is when I use the plus sign up here to calculate the number in the parentheses. And the next solution is when I use the minus sign up here to calculate the number in parentheses. So anyway, this is not a math class, but I'm just showing you how to use Python using these math tools. All right, so let's get in Python. So I go into my applications. There's Python idle, I double click. Here I am. Let me get this thing out of the way. Okay. And so here I'm in the shell. Enter. All right. Now, it's easier for me to write the script. I mean, I could type into the console. It's a little cumbersome. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do File, New File, and then it opens up this pad for me. And then within the pad, I will start typing. So you notice in this formula, this generic formula, ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, I can solve for x in terms of a, b, and c. And here it is. This is the solution of x in terms of that a, b, and c. So the first thing I want to do is I'll just define what a, b, and c is for my particular case. In this case, a is equal to 34. So in here I'll type in a equals 34. Enter. Then here b is equal to 68. So here I'll type in b equals 68. Enter. Then here c is equal to minus 510, because really plus c, so that would be equivalent to saying plus negative 510. So c is really minus 510. So I'll say c equals minus 510. Okay, now I'm going to solve for x. I've got two solutions for x. I'll call the first one x1. x1 is equal to, and I'll just type in this formula. I type in the parenthesis, the opposite of b. I'll use the plus first, plus, and then I'll do the square root. Oh, I can't do the square. Well, I want to use that square root term. So before that, I will do this. So I go back into the script up here. I go enter, and I go up line. I'm going to say import math. I want to import that math module first. Then once I import the math module, then I can use the square root function. So I'll type in math dot square root of, and then I've got b asterisk asterisk 2, which is b squared, minus 4 times a times c, end parentheses again, and that's my numerator, divided by, I'll do a parenthesis, 2 times a, end parenthesis. That's x1. Now x2, the second value for x is going to be exactly like that, okay? But, oh, well, let me print it. So I'll do a print statement. Print x1. Okay, so that's going to print the first solution for x, right? And then I will do x2. All right, so instead of doing that, I'll just copy it. So if I do here, I do a Control C or Mac C and Mac V, and I'll change this to a 2, and then I'll change this to a minus because it's plus or minus the square root, and there I am. There, I've got it. And now I want to print that one, so I'll copy this, copy, Control C, and then paste, and I'll change that to a 2, and there I am. Okay, so now let's run it. Run module. It's going to say source must be saved. Okay? Yeah, okay, save it. What do you want to call it? So I'll call it square root. Square root. Okay. No, I don't want to call it square root. It's not square root. I'll call it a quadratic. Quadratic solution. How's that? Okay, quadratic solution. I'll save that. Boom, did it. Gave me my two answers, 3 and negative 5. And you see when I calculated it here, I got 3 and negative 5. You could check. I could check to see if that's right. Okay, how do I know it's right? Well, it's right if I say 34 times. It tells me one solution is 3, so I'll say times 3. And then asterisk, asterisk to make it 34x squared plus 68 times 3, because that's the value of x I'm using right now, 68 times 3, and then minus 510. And then after I do that calculation, I better end up with 0. Enter. And I do. I get 0. So then if I want to do the same thing, except this time I'm going to substitute negative 5 instead of 3, I'm not going to type it again. I just hit up arrow. Oh, up arrow doesn't work. Okay, in some consoles it does. So anyway, so that means I got to type it again. All right, so 34, I think I have to set it up to do that. All right, so I'll do 34 times, and then I'll have negative 5. I've got to put it in parentheses because I want that negative sign to also get raised to the 2 power, because all of x gets raised to the 2 power, not just the 5 portion, the negative as well. So that's negative 5 asterisk asterisk 2, because negative 5 is x, in this case for the second x, plus 68 times, and again, I want to multiply that by -5. All right, and then I'm going to subtract 510. And if I do that calculation, I better end up with 0. And I do. So there it is. All right, goodbye.